Welcome to the Explainer. Let's jump right in. If your goldfish starts flashing against the rocks or suddenly breaks out in terrifying white spots, you need to know exactly what to do. Today, we're tackling a highly misunderstood puzzle in aquatic husbandry.
It's that gut-sinking feeling every fish keeper knows. You look at your tank, you see those white spots, and your first instinct is probably to reach straight for the standard medications, right? But hold on, because as we're going to see from the science today, misdiagnosing this specific symptom can literally be a fatal mistake. If you get this wrong, you might actually be accelerating your fish's demise. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. The protozoan threat, 2. Identifying the exact parasite, 3. The water quality connection, 4. A step-by-step treatment guide, and 5. Preventing future outbreaks.
Okay, Section 1, the protozoan threat. We'll be looking at the big three microscopic parasites that typically go after goldfish. That's Epistylis, and Costia. Let's start with Costia, or ichthyobodiasis. The truly insidious thing about Costia is that it's completely invisible to the naked eye. You aren't going to see the parasite itself. Instead, what you'll see is the severe irritation it causes. We're talking excess mucus, milky pink raw spots, and significantly thickened gills. Usually, your fish is going to become super listless and just stop eating entirely. It's a direct attacker that completes its whole life cycle right there on the host. Moving to Section 2, identifying the exact parasite. Specifically, we need to talk about telling the difference between the two white spot pathogens, because getting this right is arguably the most critical skill you can learn in this hobby.
Look at this comparison. The visual differences are actually incredibly stark once you know what you're looking for. It looks like perfectly flat, highly uniform grains of salt just sprinkled onto the fish. Epistylis, on the other hand, it's translucent, it's fuzzy, the spots are all different sizes, and it literally protrudes out from the body. And here's the absolute biggest tell. Epistylis is very commonly found sticking out directly from the fish's eyes, whereas ick almost never appears there.
Which brings us to the most dangerous myth in the hobby right now. As this quote points out, if you see Epistylis, but you mistake it for itch and raise the tank temperature, which, is the standard textbook protocol for itch, you are going to rapidly accelerate the underlying bacterial infection that's actually feeding the Epistylis. You are essentially guaranteeing your fish will die. It's like throwing gasoline on a microscopic fire.
Section 3. The water quality connection. To truly beat these parasites, we have to look past the pathogens themselves and examine the environment they're living in.
Let's be real. Pathogens almost never attack a totally healthy fish in a vacuum. It's the environmental stressors that severely compromise a goldfish's immune system in the first place. Low dissolved oxygen, organic pollution, high ammonia, overcrowding, poor circulation, all of this creates a perfect storm. When that immune system drops, that's exactly when the parasites strike.
The absolutely crucial point here is that Epistylis is purely opportunistic. It's actually a filter feeder, so it thrives when a tank is overfed or has poor flow, because it's just feeding off the high bacterial load in the water, or feeding off the shedding bacteria of a fish that's already suffering. Those fuzzy white spots? They are usually just an outward alarm bell that your fish is dying of a massive internal bacterial infection.
All right, Section 4, Step-by-Step Treatment Guide. Let's break down the precise, science-backed pathways to actually save your tank.
First up, treating Costia. Because Costia lives out its entire life cycle directly on the fish, you can generally eradicate it with a single, prompt chemical treatment right in the water column. A combination of malachite green and formalin or using potassium permanate is highly effective, but only if you catch those symptoms early. Now let's talk about the classic protocol for itch. If you are absolutely 100% certain it is itch, remember, flat, uniform salt grains, you actually do want to use heat. You gradually bump the temperature up to about 82 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit to speed up the parasite's life cycle. Combine that with 0.3% aquarium salt. The heat forces the parasite into its vulnerable free swimming stage way faster, and then the salt simply kills it through osmotic shock.
But remember, treating Epistylis requires a completely different playbook. Dumping antibiotics into the water column just doesn't work well. Honestly, it often just feeds bacterial blooms. You have to get the medicine directly into the fish's digestive tract to cure that internal infection.
The recipe is brilliantly simple, though. You just bind a broad-spectrum antibiotic, like Canaplex, directly to their dry food using a little unflavored gelatin and feed them that exclusively for 10 days.
And just look at the stark contrast in the environmental tweaks here. This is exactly why getting your initial diagnosis right is so vital. Epistylis requires you to drop the temperature down to around 70 degrees to stunt the harmful bacteria, and you need to crank up the aeration. That is the exact polar opposite of what you do for an itch outbreak.
Okay, Section 5. Preventing future outbreaks. Because treating sick fish is incredibly stressful, it's risky, and frankly, it's exhausting. We need proactive, long-term strategies. Check out this real-world success story. It perfectly illustrates that sometimes the absolute best husbandry involves taking a step back and intentionally doing less. This hobbyist just stopped obsessively vacuuming and cleaning his filters, and it completely transformed his tank, totally eliminating his Epistylis problem. Let's look at the mechanics behind why that works.
These prevention strategies are your ultimate defense. First, you have to quarantine new fish for 4 to 6 weeks, no exceptions. But look at that second bullet point. For a lot of people, this is a massive paradigm shift. Stop cleaning your mature filters. That ugly brown gunk inside your filter is actually packed with millions of harmless microscopic organisms. They outcompete and consume the free-floating bacteria that Epistylis relies on to survive. Combine a mature, uncleaned filter with some wave makers to kill dead zones and stop overfeeding, and your tank literally becomes an immunological fortress.
So, the ultimate takeaway today, and the question I want to leave you with, is this. In your drive to maintain a pristine, perfectly sterile-looking aquarium, are you accidentally washing away all that beneficial brown gunk and destroying the exact microscopic ecosystem that is keeping your goldfish alive? Definitely something to think about the next time you reach in to rinse out that filter sponge. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep observing, and we'll catch you next time.